Okay, we got Mr. Rurai here today. Good boy. Rurai is a standard poodle. Gorgeous red boy. As you can see, he gets a more unique cut. He has a longer fluff on his leg. This is a kind of Asian fusion style. The mom, I guess, found a video, or I'm sorry, not a video, a photo on the internet somewhere of a dog with a similar trim. There was some differences, but not a whole lot different than what I do to him. So I like to go ahead and pre-shave for the bath. He gets a 5. Sometimes we go lower, and then in the winter time we go longer. I had a pair of thinning shears that were curved that I like to use on him for his services, but that fell, unfortunately, and now it won't close properly. It keeps catching on the other part of it. So I have to buy a new one. I recently had one of my own dogs come with a ailment that I had to take her to the vet for, and so my funding is kind of low right now to buy another. It'll happen soon enough. I really like this owner because he trusts me in everything I do. He doesn't question what I have to do when I have to do it. Occasionally, he has matting in his ears and his tail, and I just have to trim that out. The owner is really nice too. He helps me. He walks the dog a lot. This dog is like known by the community. He is out and about with his dad and gets seen, and has a lot of people ask who does his grooming, and sends me quite a few clients, and it's really cool to have a dog like this as a walking billboard, because although he is a standard poodle, his face is what a lot of doodle owners want to have done on their dogs. So it's nice to have doodle clientele come through from him, walking around, and even other poodle people, because this was a poodle cut before it was adopted by doodle owners that like that thicker head without a clean face, you know. Yeah, it was a poodle cut before Doodle parents just, desired this thing. So it's nice to get, poodles to do this too. Um, and I'm one of those no-nonsense type of groomer, whereas the dog has matting and things like that. I will, depending on the severity of the matting, I can brush out. But I won't put the dog through a horrible amount of brushing and trying to get the stuff out. I'm glad I have these mats on the floor, because that would have probably led to disaster for this blade that just fell. My butterfingers. Some might say I'm needlessly shaving him before his bath. But he is not really fond of the drying process. He has never been. And I've groomed him almost his whole life. His owners, the children to the owner, his son had a standard poodle who I used to groom when I worked in corporate. I had groomed that dog for a good number of years, and all of a sudden he just stopped coming. I don't often like to call and check up on clients who have not been in a long time, because basically I worry about the likelihood of the dog having passed away. And it would hurt me to know that the dog passed away, and then it also kind of hurts the owners to have to think about it and relive it. I like it when owners call me and let me know, but I'm also not going to, pressure anyone into giving me that information. So I had just assumed that dog had passed away, but as it would turn out, they had, for whatever reason, given the dog to the father. And I don't know if it was he wasn't local at the time or what, or he was grooming the dog himself, because he does do little scissoring here and there on Rurai when he needs it. Instead of coming up and bothering me, I guess he thinks that he could just do it himself and save me the trouble. I wouldn't mind. I enjoy this dog. So anyhow, he had the other standard poodle. He was gray color, really pretty. He had a wiry coat. I guess his line, that was something that was always carried down for his history. So one day I'm still working in corporate, and I get this man come through, and he had this little paper with him. In corporate, PetSmart had a report card that you would fill out and send home with the pet parents that depicted what services were performed that day, any things that the groomer noticed that was, a possible health concern, letting them know how the skin and coat, and it was skin, coat, ears, nails, and teeth, and then back and forth on those progress reports is what it was called, PAW, GRESS, GRESS report, play on words from progress report. Sometimes they would mention anal glands as well, but it was like every time they would redo the redo the form, they would either take it off or put it back and forth, back and forth. So anyway, the guy would come in. He came in with this progress report in his hand, and he says he was looking for the groomer who did this dog. And it was just happened to be me that he was handing it to, and it was me who wrote the progress report, and it had the dog's name listed on it. And I about lost it because it had been a number of years since I had done that dog, and that this man who I didn't know would come in with this pamphlet in his hand. And so he told me the story. He had gotten the dog, and he had a very unique name, so there was no confusing it. It was just like Rurai has a very unique name. I've never known another dog named Rurai before. It's Ruria, or it's Rurai. That's what it is, Rurai. Anyhow, the dog was, like I said, had that specific name, and I was just floored that he come in asking, and I was like, yeah, that's me, oh my goodness. And then he tells me that he had the dog and had it for however long he had him for, and he ended up passing away. And he was heartbroken about it and decided that he couldn't live without another standard poodle in his life. And so he got with this breeder, and she's pretty much well known to breed, specifically the red coat poodles. And it's funny because I had another client at the time who had the same red poodle female, which her dog was a lot older than he is, but it turns out it was from the same breeder. So that's pretty cool, But yeah, so I started grooming him, and when I had made the move to go private, opening my own shop, they are really strict about you taking clientele from the facility. So if I would have copied, stored contact information from these clients, and they would have found out, they could have come after me for theft, basically. They could have sued me. And I had this other client who, super important person to me, an older lady. The dog, she has a Bernese Mountain Dog. I had actually found a cancerous lesion on the dog's foot, and the owner took it into the university to have it treated. They did chemo, they did an amputation of the affected, it was a toe. They amputated the toe and saved the dog's life, essentially. Got it in remission, stuff like that. That's a different story. So I had her private information already because of all of these things that the dog was going through, and she was keeping me up to date about it. She still frequents the PetSmart that I worked at and buys her dog's food and her cat's food and litter and everything else that they need. And the same plaza where this PetSmart is located has a post office. Well, she had went down to the post office to get her mail and saw him walking on the sidewalk outside of the post office. And so she went outside and asked him who groomed his dog. And at the time, come in quite a bit, but he, you know, it was sometimes 2, sometimes 3 months in between his visits. And so I had left and opened my own salon in between the times that he had been in last. So when she, you know, asked him who grooms his dog, and he said me, so the girl named Jessica at PetSmart, and she goes, oh, she doesn't work there anymore. And gave him my, you know, information for this shop. And at the time, I had, you know, pretty fresh open. I hadn't gotten, you know, a ton of clientele at this point. And I was always hoping that because this man, you know, kind of sought me out, that he would have sought me out on his own once he realized I wasn't at PetSmart anymore. So I just kept hoping that he would find, you know, he would go in and find out I wasn't there anymore, and then keep his loyalty and try to search for me. But it turns out my other client, you know, took care of that for him, so he didn't have to. So I was so excited the moment he came in so that I could give him a service, and then I could post it on my business page on Facebook. And I was like, this dog is a walking billboard. He is a walking sculpture of what I can do, my abilities. And I was very excited over it. And as soon as I posted his pictures, and I went to breed-specific groups in the area and for the state, you know, just to get, you know, some stuff going for him. Get people to find me that haven't used me before, and this dog can be accredited to a good portion of my clientele now. And it's just amazing to think about that. Like, how one person can do so much. I'm going to, you know, trim this out, and then I'm going to go back and pluck the ears. I'm one of those who believes less is more when it comes to plucking, and sometimes it's good to wait between pluckings, like get in a couple of grooms before you pluck it again. And so today is time to pluck it again, and he's not a fan of it, of course. If he had ears that were self-cleaning, I wouldn't even bother with it. I would trim the hair at the edge of the ear canal and leave it. I wouldn't pluck it, but he does not have self-cleaning ears. They get really gunky and dark because he's got such a thick coat that thick coat has also entered his ears, his canal. So I'm gonna do that. For those who aren't aware of what ear plucking is and how to do it, you can, in my opinion, any ear cleaner is the same thing. It's a powder that basically you put inside of the canal, and then it helps you grip the hair. So basically you just get a good amount of it in there, and then you just pluck it. You just pull the hairs. And like I said, he's not a fan of it, so he's gonna make noise, he's gonna cry and things like that. But this couple of, you know, a little bit of time to remove this hair, the pain resulting from that is less than what it would be for him to get an infected ear. And like I said, less is more. If I see a dog that does not have gunky ears, that has a bunch of ear hair, I don't trim it because, or I'm saying I don't pluck it. I just trim it from the edge because that ear canal is doing its job still, even with that ear hair present. But every dog's different. Every dog needs different services. There can be counter effects to plucking ears. Sometimes it has what's called micro tears on the surface of the ear canal, and then that could, in theory, get infected as well. But if you do smaller portions like this of plucking, I feel like it doesn't irritate the ear so much and then have those tears and complications associated with it. There are dogs that, you know, they freak out so much for the service that doing this smaller portions of plucking, they won't even tolerate that. So you got to get a hemostat and basically clamp the hair and twirl the hemostat in the ear to remove all of the hair at one time. Well, that one time, you figure all that hair in there that's ripping out and all the stuff that's happening inside. So yeah, there could be the micro tears within the ear canal for that. But yeah, this is, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It can and can't, you know, affect the dog's ear health. Every dog's different, so every dog's going to have a different reaction to it. That's one side effect of plucking the ears, is a lot of head shaking. Some dogs could get overreactive with the ear shaking, and what they'll do is shake so much that the flaps of the ears get damaged, and then they get a hematoma from flapping the ears, and then they flap the ears even more because then they're uncomfortable because there's a big bulge of blood in their ear. I had that not too long ago, unfortunately, with a client. But it was a double whammy for that day with that client. It was a golden doodle, but it had a lot more poodle characteristics than it did golden doodle. And we did the clean face, we did a donut mustache, and the only reason I did that, to be honest, is because the dog was too mad and I couldn't do anything but that. So the ears were really, really, really badly matted. It was just a solid mass, and when I removed it, the hematoma was already there. And so I plucked the ears because they were black and they were just disgusting, and told the owners, you know, this is why this is happening. The dog's shaking even more because of XYZ, and it ended up lasting a couple of days. Thankfully, they did not have to go to the vet for it. On another video that I have recently shared with a Shih Tzu, I have a product for dematting that I really like from Nature's Specialties. It's called Easy Demat Solution or something to that effect. I had took it back with me to the washroom, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that stuff in his tail in the tub and do what I got to do to get the matting out of his tail, and then I'll come back and finish his groom. I'm not going to be able to record his bath because I don't have a outlet in there to plug this light in, so I will be right back. Okay, so now if I don't trip on everything, okay, let's go. Alright. So his face isn't as nice and fluffed out like a poodle should be, and that's because he doesn't like it. And so basically, I fluff out the rest of his body with the dryer, and then I put him in the kennel dryer, and then we both take a break while his head finishes. Sure if that's still too loud. Yeah, it's still too loud. I have to have my music while I'm grooming. My demons inside my brain talk too much. I just like music. I always said that I can't sing, but I think I would be a really good producer because I can hear a good voice. Like I could be like Simon Cowell. He can't sing, at least I don't think he can, but he knows what sounds good and gets it produced. He's got a couple of mats in this ear, but I'm not going to brush them out. I'm just going to go ahead and cut them out really quick because they're a little bit chunky. So easy ways to to remove matting is to section out the hairs that are not matted from the mat and then cut those specific areas like that. And usually if you do that really well, section it out, that little thing that you cut away, you're not going to ever know that it was done. After you brush it down and carry on with your groom, you won't ever see it. So another thing I mentioned earlier when I was doing his ears, I forgot to mention about the airflow, and that's something that happens when a dog who has a lot of hair inside their ear and then it's plucked, airflow is regained in that area. And so that's another reason they'll shake their head a lot. It's not necessarily because of the sensation of the hairs being gone, it's the sensation of the air going inside. And you figure how that feels to have nothing flowing and then all of a sudden, boom, now you got all this air being able to go inside of your ear canal. His feet were super, super dirty. Dad had mentioned this morning he had gotten into the field. I'm not sure what field he's talking about because I thought he lived inside of town, but there could be some small grassy area that he frequents. Yeah, but his feet were filthy, and it's been raining. When he was up front in the lobby with me, and we were talking, catching up, because he had planned to go on a trip. Well, that trip was cut short because of COVID concerns. And I saw him walking around in the lobby, and I have, it's not white, but it's like a cream kind of color of a tile floor, and his little feet were making prints all over the place. And I was like, oh yeah, your feet are really dirty. And then when I got him up onto the table and I was picking up his feet to trim the tops of his legs, it was like crunchy. It was just caked in dirt. It was gross. So his feet got washed twice. One good way to know whether or not a dog is actually dirty or not is if you have a product like a face wash or anything that has a actual plunger that you're having to pump to get the product out. Usually those are white. Generally 98%, 99% of the time those are white. When you go back to get more product and you plunge it, you can see the discoloration on the white from the bubbles and stuff that was on your hands going back for more. So that's one way you can tell if the dog's really dirty. I mean, sometimes it's evident depending on the color of the dog. And then the water runoff, you can see it. So I used that product in the tub and used a mat breaker to get through the tangles that he had in his tail. Sometimes when you dry a dog, you can put tangles in the coat that weren't there before. There are directions that you can hold your nozzle for the dryer. If you have if you keep on one thing, so like say I have the dryer in my hand and I'm drying. If you keep going like this, there's less likely to have tangles. If you keep going like this, it's less likely to have tangles. When you do it like this, in a rounded motion, you can be pretty guaranteed you're going to have some tangles. And I'm not saying that you're not going to ever get a tangle the other ways. There are always things that happen that, whatever, but those, if you do that, either go up or down or side to side while blowing, and you don't do like circular motions, you're going to have a better time without matting, without adding mats to the tail and things like that, or ears, or the whole body. Like if you have a golden retriever, all of their little wispies will catch those little pin knots from blowing if you're not doing it properly. Sometimes holding the dryer too close to the dog will also affect that, but I have pretty good luck with holding the dryer really close to the skin. As long as I'm not like going psycho with the dryer, I don't get those little whip knots from the hair whipping around. Alright, so when you're dematting, start with a slicker brush, brush it out. If you think that you're 100% brushed out, go behind with a comb and feel if it goes through or not. If it doesn't, if it catches like that, like it's catching right there, I can't do nothing, don't pull through it with your slicker or your comb, because unfortunately what could happen is the skin can detach from the tail and then deglove the tail, which will take all of the skin off, hair, skin, everything, and all you're left with is bone and the underneath of the skin, basically. Bloody mess. I have never done it myself, but I have seen pictures and videos of it. It's not good. And when you're using a mat breaker like that, you have to be really careful that you're not catching the tail itself too. That's just like the comb with the tail, the tip of the tail. Sometimes the tip is thin enough it can get caught in between the tines of your comb, and if you're doing that push through, if you think it's a mat and you're pushing through it, you could actually rip the end of the tail off, because it's actually the tail that's stuck in it and not the mat that you think you feel. And so then you have that expense, because you are going to have to then pay for the vet bills, because that was something that you did. It wasn't a pre-existing injury, it wasn't, that was your neglect. If that happens, that's you. You have to pay that. That's not on them. It's, you gotta know what you're doing. Everyone has to start somewhere, and so I just don't want someone to have a new salon and that be the first thing that happens, and then your name in the community gets tarnished because of an injury that could have been prevented. Back brushing is crucial when you're doing coats like this. You're going to stretch the hair out. You're going to make it more straight, and you're going to break the curl pattern by doing it this way. Usually he has mats between his toes, so I'm expecting that. And he had a lot of debris in his coat too. He had sticks and leaves, and he's got some plant seeds, some weed seeds in his coat. Always be careful when you're back brushing a thin coat area like this, now that it's been trimmed. When you're back brushing or brushing with the coat, with the grain, your bristles are basically touching the skin at that point. There's not a lot of protection like here, even though yes, it can still touch the skin here. There's more hair in between the blade, the bristles, than there is skin contact. So try to be forceful but not too heavy-handed, because you don't want to then give the dog brush burn. And brush burn is pretty much just scratching the dog's skin really, really badly. I had done it once when I first started grooming, I had a lab or something, and the dog really enjoyed the sensation of brushing. He was one of those dogs that was itchy, and so whenever I was brushing him with the slicker, he was into it. It felt good. I went a little overboard with it, and I didn't know it at the time until after everything was said and done, and I was looking at his skin, and I could see that red scratch area of his skin up underneath the coat because of how bad it was. I felt awful. I was young and very green. Sometimes lessons that you receive in life are by example, not by someone telling you what could happen like I'm saying now. I have a rule for back brushing also. I don't like to back brush more than twice. What I'm doing here, this back brush doesn't count. What I'll do is I'm brushing it all back now, and then I'm about to take my blade that I've started the groom with and go back over to catch all this stuff that's now fluffed up and come to life. If you're not bathing a dog before your haircut, you're not going to get a even cut. You're going to get it very choppy, uneven, very gross in a sense, I guess you could say. And this is something that separates people who don't know what they're doing from who they do know what they're doing. So you saw how I brushed everything back, and earlier I had did the pre-shave. So you'll see all this hair that's falling off right now. It may not be a whole lot of sections, but if you think about it, that's all uneven hair all over the dog. And I have different techniques I'll do on different dogs. Like some people like to do a one over on the whole dog, come back through, back brush the whole dog, and do it again. Some people like to take and trim down the one section, back brush, go over that one section again, and so on and so on. There really, to be honest, is no wrong way to do it. If you're back brushing, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you trim the entire dog like I'm doing here with him, or if you focus in on that one area, because in the end, it's all the same. It doesn't seem like it's the same amount of time, but it literally is all the same time. It doesn't matter, because now, like, I can whip through the whole thing, come back over with my slicker brush and back brush, and go do it again. He likes to lift his legs. He thinks he's being helpful, and sometimes he is, but more times than not, he's not being helpful. And so because I'm blending out take a guard comb and go across his boots, and then I'm going to come back and go over the tops of his boots and blend it down. And I'll show you some ways that I do that. So I don't have access to view the camera time that I've spent just now. Did I dare to say it was 5 minutes probably? That it took me to go over this side that has been back brushed. So now I'm going to back brush it again. And depending on how much hair I get off of this go around will depend on if I go back in a third or for a second back brush. And the reason is you can get caught up. Time management, things like that, you can get stuck on doing one thing over and over and over again. Just because you're trying to be as perfect as you can, and I applaud everyone to be as perfect as they can, but there is such thing as overkill. And so basically, if you just keep doing that over and over again, you're taking away from time that you could be doing something else. A lot of times, we don't get the luxury to have a dog for an exorbitant amount of time, and we have to work around other people's schedules and have their dogs done in a timely fashion. Like if he was my dog, I'd probably spend all day grooming him just because I could. And he'll be the ultimate perfectly groomed dog because you had all that time to do it. Now, we have to, as groomers, get out of our heads sometimes because we are going to see flaws in our own product productions because it's ours. We've just spent that time on it, and it's really difficult to separate, what you've done and what you've left behind. But there are going to be times where a dog's going to act up so severely that you're not going to have the ability to make that dog a perfect haircut. It's going to be one of those things that's me and a couple of other groomers have said, and I don't know if it's a more common thing with other people or not, but I say that's as good as it gets for a dog like you. And so you want a quality groom, but you also don't want to continue to stress the dog to the point of some kind of health problem. Because dogs, cats, most animals, if they get too stressed, they can have seizures, strokes, heart attack. Not too different than a human, but animals are more susceptible to that stuff. I like to make sure I keep the table as clear as I can, as much as I can, to see how much I'm actually getting off as well. Because it's like, you see it falling, but you don't realize how much is falling because it's blending into the rest of the hair that's already on the table. Besides, it's nice to have a clear workspace so that the dog can step and not, have any problems maybe keeping traction because of the hair being there and it's slippery. When I'm slipping off the table. I normally do nails and paw pad trims before the bath, but like I was mentioning, his feet were just so incredibly disgusting, just dirty, 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 that I wasn't going to put that on my blades. In theory, I could have probably still went ahead and done his nails, but I just would rather have a nice clean foot to hold in my hand, a dry, clean foot, because like I said, it's wet outside. It's been raining for a couple of days, and so it's pretty gross. For my other groomers out there, you know how you'll get a dog in that's like soaking wet, and because it's raining outside, and how disgusting it feels. But whenever it's a clean dog that's wet, you don't have as much of a mental block on it. I think it's funny how the mind works. I mean, there's legitimacy behind the two things, because I mean they're dirty, but then they're wet dirty. But then you got a clean wet. It's just funny. Things that you think about. If he was an older dog, or was a different breed and had a thinner skin, going down like this could be dangerous. And in theory, it still could be dangerous now. But with the blade that I'm using, it's not as likely to catch the skin. It can still catch the skin, but it's just not as likely to. But with these, you will use these, by the book, you go in the X pattern. So you go side to side. And then you're going to have dogs, because of the way the pattern of the hair goes, it's like generally right here, there's a swirly where the hair is growing in all these different directions coming together. So when you do a blade in reverse, you get a shorter cut. And so oftentimes what will happen is if the dog has a really thin coat, and you take and go down to that swirly and you get into that other area where the coat is turned the other direction, it's going to look bald probably there. Half the time I don't concern myself with it because it's not that big of a deal. But you might get a picky owner who gets upset about that, so you have to think about those things. Because the coat is clean and brushed out, the blade doesn't get as hot for it moving so hard. It's moving more free, and so it gets less hot, it doesn't get as hot as fast, is what I was trying to say. I have a love-hate relationship with the 5-blade. There are some breeds of dogs that you do the 5-blade with the grain, and it looks like trash. It's the coat type. So you see how much hair that just got blurred off? Because that's what was left after brushing him back from the pre-trim, the rough-in. Alright, so back brushing again. Usually if you get the dog really, really dry, really well, that will also cut down on your back brushing. So you'll get a more even coat. If the coat is super clean, super dry, super straight, you're going to get a better groom. I have to get an outlet in a video to plug in this ring light that I'm using that has a camera holder on it so that I can show the baths as well. I had a different setup before. In my other videos you can see me doing baths on dogs. So I just downloaded an app, and because of this app I'm now able to take these videos that I'm making separately and slice them together. That way you're not having to go back and forth between different videos to watch a full service on a dog. And also, it's a good depiction on how long it takes things to be done. I like to think of myself as a power groomer. I know when I was working corporate, I was damn sure a power groomer. And that means you can do a large quantity of dogs in a small amount of time. And there's pros and cons to that. You can be a power groomer and do amazing grooms, and you can be a power groomer and do B+ grooms, and so on and so on. But for me, at least, working on my own, I don't have a clock, for the most part, sitting on my head, over me, ticking, threatening me that I'm not doing things fast enough, I'm not doing enough dogs the way they want them done. Something that can happen is when you're doing the insides of these legs, generally the skin is a lot thinner for some reason. You can catch the skin in your blade. If you're not holding your blade right, if you're not holding your clipper properly, you can catch the skin, or if your clipper blade isn't sharp enough. Alright, so for now, that's all the fine work that I'm doing. I'm going to have to do more stuff in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and get my tin and skim out the insides of the armpit. Depending on the haircut, will depend on how tight you need to have that done. But it sucks when you're done grooming a dog and you see, oh, there's some bits hanging down in here because I can't reach those with the clipper, the blade. And so taking a lower blade, you can access those zones. He is one who likes to assist you while you're trimming his manly zones. He wants to put his head back and lick. He was neutered a couple of months ago. So he's got a flappy skin back here. So sanitary is taken care of. Now I'm getting my 1-inch guard comb. I like the Wall brand guards. I like the metal guard. The Oyster Company has a metal guard set as well that has a 1.5 and 2-inch guard comb. I don't want to buy the whole set just to get those two a little bit longer. So I'm going to probably buy them individually, which sucks because the price of the individual ones is like the same price as buying the whole set, but it's like, why have the whole set? I don't need the whole set. I already got my set. I just need those 2 blades. And I have to go back in on this with a comb and look for tangles because I'm catching a lot. It's too bad he wasn't getting a different style leg because there's a trick that I learned making the leg warmers, the poofs on the ends of the legs. I learned this trick. If it was getting clean feet and then you'd have just this, oftentimes you brush it down and then you're going to have like all this extra fuzzy mess sticking around. You can take your guard comb the same length that you're using to set the length of that leg warmer or puff, whatever you want to call it, and run it backwards lightly. It'll catch that stuff and it'll help you with your scissor work. You're not going to have to do as much. You're still going to have to go back over it. I'm not saying that you're done. You need to go back over it and fine tune it, but it's a, it's a 2-second trick that takes a bunch of time away from you from having to nitpick. Nitpicking is, something that kills groomers. It's overthinking, worried about things too much, when you can do so much, but you have to stop at some point. There's a spot on the front legs that it's kind of like the tendon for the back leg, but basically it's like a little hidden cavity. And what happens is dogs who have long hair on their legs, when you brush, oftentimes that little cavity has that hair stuck up in it still. So one thing you can do is stretch the skin. So basically you just pull slightly. You just manipulate the skin to open up that little cavity, and then you brush the hair from inside of it. Between the toes, this is a very sensitive part of the dog. I don't like to do a lot of dematting there. I'll just go ahead and cut it out. I got his hair in my nose, so I'm itchy. You would basically do that method that I was talking about earlier, where you separate it out and trim it, but only trim like with a shear, a scissor, when you know there is no skin underneath that zone, because if you trim it and there's skin there, you're going to you're cutting the dog, you're cutting a part of the skin. I don't know why I put this up. Alright, so that's as good as that's getting, because you see it's not taking anything else off of it anymore. Always have a steel comb, don't get a plastic comb. Plastic combs just don't have enough tensile strength to get through a tangle. You're just going to be wasting your money buying all these combs when you can spend a little bit more on a steel comb, and you have the steel comb forever half the time, unless you're improperly using it and you're pulling through mats, then you're going to bend your tines of your stuff. Set of metal combs that I've had since the first day I was a groomer, when I purchased all of my equipment to go to the PetSmart Grooming Academy. They had, they give you kits unless you want to just go ahead and buy your own goods. So, I had unfortunately had a really bad accident a couple of months before I was sent off for my academy class, and it ended up making me not be able to go to that particular academy, and it happened to be a company, rear-ended me, a plumbing company, and the driver to said plumbing company was the son of the owner. He was driving illegally without a license, and when he hit my car, he basically put the trunk of my car in my back seat. It was a really bad accident. It totaled my car, obviously. I was parked at a red light, and I don't know if he was messing around on a phone or if he thought he had more time to brake than he did. It was also raining. One thing I think about that day often is that if I didn't go that direction home that day, I wouldn't have had that happen to me. So my car is totaled. I wasn't making any money yet, being a baber at PetSmart. You're working hourly, you're making hourly pay, and on top of it being hourly pay, it's not even full time, it's part time. And sometimes I only work 2 or 3 days a week. So I'm not making enough money to hardly pay my bills, and how can I then afford to have full insurance on a vehicle that's been paid off? So I reached out to a lawyer, and we went ahead and did litigation against the company, and we settled for $10,000. They went ahead and gave me the full Kelley Blue Book value of the vehicle I was driving at the time, and basically I took in the value of the vehicle, the money I got from that, I went and used that as a down payment for the vehicle that I got to exchange. And the funds from the suit against the company took longer to come. So when it finally did come, I used it, some payments on the vehicles, and then I used a good portion of that, the winnings from the suit I used to buy my salon equipment. And there's still some things that I have now that I had bought then, 8 years ago, when I've been grooming for 10 years, being a bailiff for 2, and then 8 years being a groomer. Cutting the hair of the dogs. Yeah, so there are some things you can buy that are just, you're always going to have. And if you think about it, especially back in PetSmart times when I was, working my ass off, sometimes 8, 10 dogs a day. And like I said, some of this equipment that I have now is the same stuff I was using then. You can't be cheap, basically. You be cheap, you're going to end up spending more money. I haven't went through a whole lot of clippers. Probably once every 2 years, maybe, I got a new clipper. And, some of those things that was wrong with the other clipper could have probably been easily replaced and fixed for less. But oftentimes what happens is the product breaks while you're grooming, and so you don't have the luxury of ordering the pieces and then waiting and rebuilding your clipper. So you just go ahead and buy a new one real quick so you can continue working. And then those other clippers become part clippers for the future of other clippers' lives. There's going to be a lot of scissor work on these legs. This is where skill comes in to grooming. I've got all these little tools that's helping me get to the goal that I'm after, but then I have to actually work. Because anyone can pick up a clipper and shave a dog. Anyone can pick up a comb or a slicker brush and brush a dog. That's not the end of the groom. The end of the groom is the fine detailed things that you're going to do for the finishing touches. Alright, so since I didn't do his feet before the bath and stuff, I'm going to do that now. The paw pads and his nails. When I was mentioning this client earlier and how often he was coming back when I was working in the corporate setting, he actually comes more now. He comes more now than he did then, and he's paying more now than he did then because, unfortunately, corporate would rather get someone in the door for $20, $30 cheaper and pay the groomer half that price because they're just putting the other half in their pocket. I had did a little bit of research with my area and saw the prices that was being charged for different kind of dogs and things like that. And I ended up deciding that I wasn't going to do the charging by breed. I was going to charge by weight because I felt that I could be better paid in that manner. And there's some dogs that it backfires on you, whereas this one, his groom is $100. He takes, it depends. Every time is different. It depends on his how well he was managed between the grooms. Sometimes it's 2.5, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4 hours to do the service. And so if you break that down by hour, hourly pay, you figure, okay, let's say he was here for 4 hours. That's $25 an hour basically that I made. Alright. I can do a small breed dog, like a Shih Tzu or something, something like that. I can groom one of those dogs between an hour and an hour and a half. And that groom price is $65. So $65 for an hour, hour and a half. Whereas I'm making $25 an hour grooming him. I could raise the prices even, more than they are now. But I also want to be somewhat competitive with my surrounding area. I don't want to be as low as corporate, since I'm paying for all of the products myself. But I don't want to be so high that I'm not going to get clientele too. But it's a fine line. I see on some of these other groups where people have posted sales charts, basically, that a competitive groomer had just opened up in seeing the ridiculously low, like dirt cheap prices because they're desperate, that's just gonna do two things. It's going, you're gonna get business. Yeah, you're gonna get business. What kind of customer are you bringing in? I hate to say it, but oftentimes the customer who wants the deal, who wants the cheaper product, who wants the cheapest room, who wants to try to take away some of the services so that the price goes down, those are oftentimes not the customer that you want to have. Usually their dog's in horrible shape, the owner's attitude is really rough, and so it's not pleasant. Then you're working yourself to death. You're having these really cheap prices, and you're not charging properly, so you're working for nothing almost, to then have a client that's not grateful, who's mean-spirited and all that. Got a little drink. Okay. So now I'm going to work on his feet more. I'm going to go ahead and brush it all down. And I'm going to work on the top portion of the blending before I do the bottom. And the reason I do it that way is because look where my hand is the whole time. If I just trim this and made it beautiful and then I'm holding it like this and doing, I'd be upset because then I'm taking all my pretty work and I'm messing it up by touching all over it. Alright, so I've jumped down to the 3/4 blade, and I'm just going to skim across, and that's just going to start setting the gradient to make this, because this is a hell of a difference when it comes to the length of the body to the fluffy leg. I don't know why that song's so much louder than the other songs were. I love that song though. So yeah, I'm starting to set the gradient. In an ideal world, your body isn't going to be this low. You're going to have a fluffier body so that you can make this work easier. So now I'm going to jump down to a 1/2 inch. So basically I'm doing a 1/2 inch down, 1/2 inch down. So started at the 1, went over it with the 3/4 or whatever that was. The fun thing about rooms like this is because it's Asian fusion, there is really no wrong way to get to your achieve goal. It's basically creating. You're creating the whole time. You're making something from nothing. Alright, so I went from the 1 inch to the 3/4 inch to the 1/2 inch. So yeah, it wasn't half every time, but anyhow. So the 1/2 inch between then and the 5 is really not very much, so it's the 4. And so I just take my blade for this. I don't like to use the guard comb so much. The number 2 guard comb is the same length as the number 4. Now sometimes he gets antsy, so I'm hoping that he keeps standing still enough for me to make this look nice. Step back, you want to look at the line where your transition begins to make sure everything is even. You don't want it to be super high in one spot and a lot lower in another spot. Okay, so that was the 4. Now we're going to go back over with the 5. If you're really brave and you want to skip all these steps of going from blade to blade to blade to blade, by all means, do you. This is just the method I use. And that can be done however you want. But yeah, when it's like some winter time and he comes in and he gets the longer cut, oh, it looks, you can't see a line. You can't see where the 2 areas start to blend. It's just seamless. It's beautiful. I'm not a master groomer. I'm not sitting here trying to pretend that I'm better than anyone else. I am just trying to show fun grooms, chat, give a little bit of knowledge from my experience. There may be some watching that say, oh, I can make that a whole lot more blended even if it's all the way down like that. Well, good for you. That's wonderful. I'm happy for you. You have the skills to do that. But now I'm going to go ahead and start working on the bottom. And so this is where things get tricky. So I'm just down brushing it like another time just to guarantee that there's no matte still remaining. I'm going to go ahead and go down to a smaller comb to make sure that there is nothing left. So, just to show, this is examples. I've got this comb that just happens to be a half moon. I'm just using it because it's the first one I've grabbed. It's not because it's better than anything else. I promise you, in my experience, this one does nothing different than the other ones. So then you got this one. You see how tight this is compared to how wider this is. So this is going to be more fine detailing. This one's called a face comb. And so it's going to catch the things that you missed. So like that little tangle, I missed that with this bigger comb. So I'm just going to go over all of his feet really quick with this. So that's one less thing I have to worry about. Yep, he's got a mat here that is manageable enough that I don't have to go in there and cut it. I lied. I'm going to have to cut it. You see how he's already acting up? So you find it. You section it out. And you carefully scissor that zone to get it out in the way. The problem with matting is it'd be wonderful in the perfect world that if a mat started and it just stayed in that one spot. What happens is once the mat keeps growing, it branches off into other areas and just is a connective like a spider web. So you think that one area was it? Nope, there's another spot. But yeah, he's more of a sensitive dog for his feet. Some well-experienced standard poodles don't really put up too much of a fuss or a fight about you brushing areas. Yeah, I wish my GoPro that I got for more detailed visibility and grooming worked. I got a refurbished one. I don't know how to use it. It could just be me. I got it turned on when it first came. It turned on. I thought I turned it off, set it down, left it alone, come back to use it, and it won't turn on. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I left it on. Maybe it was me. Maybe I left it on, and the battery died. Nope, it is not turning on because I plugged it back in to charge it up, and it will not come back on. Okay, so you're going to brush up just like this, because what we're trying to achieve is a rounded foot. Nice rounded foot. You're just going to go around and around very lightly, very lightly. Unless you have a dog that's overgrown. You don't want to accidentally cut off too much, and then you have to work to blend that area that you cut off too much in, and you know, then you're working in reverse. So I brushed it all up, and then I brushed it down. And then I come back across it now that it's down. Holding it in your hand like this gives you a false sense of security, thinking that, oh, that's a gorgeous foot right there. And then you set it down, and then the foot does what the foot does. It settles in, and some dogs don't have the perfect feet. They'll have toes that come out to the side, and so then that alters. This shear needs to be sharpened. So you have to then come in and adjust and, you know, create what you're trying to achieve. But just scissor lightly. You don't want to go in taking huge chunks ever, because you don't want to accidentally take too much off. And even someone like me who's got, you know, experience, I'll still make those mistakes. Like, it happens where I accidentally take a chunk out. When I was in my grooming academy, we had this district leader woman come through, checking in on our progress, and this one girl, I wasn't her fan. Was not her fan whatsoever. But she was sucked into the unfortunate nitpick thing, where she would work on something for way too long, and get lost. And so she had this poodle that she had just groomed and had a decent top knot going on. This district leader woman come over to her top knot and went whack, and cut out a chunk of the top knot. It was like, all right, now I want you to fix it. It was a test. The girl, rightfully so, was very shook up by it. She cried, and you know, but it was, I mean, I didn't care for that woman at all. I didn't care for the girl she did it to. But in the end, it was, I think, valuable. Maddening at the time for sure, but I think it was a valuable lesson that you just keep working and you fix the stuff, because you got other equipment that you can use to fix it. Like the blending shears, the thinners, the chunkers, all those kind of things. This is a thinning shear, has the serrated blades. There's a bunch of different sizes, teeth widths, a number of teeth. This is a chunker. It takes off more at one time. It just gets you there quicker, but this is also dangerous because it gets you there so quick. You might get overzealous and you might do it too fast, and so you'll lose hair that probably shouldn't have went nowhere. And so, you can see how I have taken and brushed and scissored and brushed and scissored to get the optic, you know, what I'm looking for. And there's going to be times where you think you're done. No, it's not done yet. you need to do something else. Now you see how I've got 4 different shears on this table right now. I've got a curved shear, I've got a thinning shear, I've got a chunker, and I've got a straight shear. You need all these things. You don't just have one shear and call it a day. You cannot perform the job properly if you don't have enough tools. Now that's a sexy foot right there. He's always better for his back feet. So I always do that first and come back to the front because you saw him dancing for his front feet, so that's what he's going to do. And I just want to get something done quickly when I can. Brush it down one more time to guarantee I don't have any tangles. Satisfied, brush it up. I'm sorry that you can't see what I'm doing now. But I'm doing the same thing I was doing over there. Something that it doesn't get talked about too much with grooming is the amount of movement that you're going to need. You're going to need to bend your wrist and your arm and your back and your neck into all these crazy positions so that you can get areas without having to disturb the dog too much. Like right now, I'm up underneath him. He could pee on me. He could, in theory, bite me if he wanted to. You gotta know dog behavior to also be a groomer. You can get a dog who has never had any kind of attitude about any grooming service until they met you. And sometimes it's not even them, it's you. It's something that they're sensing in you. Sensing you're not very confident in what you're doing. And they will